Brum brum. Right, this is a video about fitting the self-starter on the Emeryson, but it was done over a course of months, so it was very difficult for Tanya to put it together into a video. So if you think it's a little bit not the best, that's because of really the fact it took such a long time. I said the same thing over again several times, so they had to cut that. But anyway, we did get to the point of driving it, and we did get to the point where it started on the self-starter. But it still needs a lot of perfecting, and obviously we've got other things going on. But and when I did actually get to drive it, it got that ringing noise. And the reason for that is that the pinion on the starter motor was too close to the ring on the engine. So every now and again it would just clash and ring, which is very annoying. But, you know, obviously that's an easy fix. But other than that, you know, I'm still quite keen on the car, and I mean, we did manage to get it to start, and I think if we had the float level right, the valve timing right, everything was checking, and we haven't done any of that. So if we could get it to start up and run nicely, that would be a good start. Because even driving it around the field, I couldn't put my foot right down because it just stopped. So anyway, you'll see the video. This is all excuses, but there's the old car, and we put the front on so that you can see what a lovely little car it is. So Tanya will now just zoom round the car, and the next thing you know, it'll be on YouTube. So this video is about the Emeryson and trying to make it have a self-starter. Now the reason we're going to all this trouble is, when I run the Skiro at Chateau Impney, it was a complete and utter nuisance, because, you know, they take you down and they say, oh, stop there. So you stop. How are you going to start it? To start one of these, you have to jack it up. You put a thing on the front wheel, spin it up. So that means you've got to have 2 people minimum. And then you get it running. You go down to the line at Prescott, say, bloke goes up the hill, has a little bit of a problem, red flag. So now you're stuck on the line. You can't start it without the thing. So in other words, it's a real drama. Now the previous bloke who owned this car obviously had all this problem, and he started to fit a self-starter. So when we got it, it had a self-starter fitted, but it didn't work. And what he'd done, he'd fitted a starter ring, this starter ring, to the outside of the clutch on there. Well, that's not very good anyway. But the other thing is, because to turn that once, you've got to turn the engine several times. So it'd have to be terribly powerful. But anyway, we looked at it all, and it all looked a little bit like we could improve it. So we improved it. We made a different mounting for the starter. We got rid of the starter motor that he had, because we burned that out in about 10 seconds. And we got another starter motor from Wasp, and they found us a little sprocket that would fit onto that. But anyway, it didn't work. No matter what we did, it didn't work. So then we experimented with retired in the ignition, finished up with no spark. So it's quite obvious that when you retire the ignition, the magneto, it moves it from its flux and then it doesn't spark. So that's that one. So that was, as far as we was concerned, that was Mark 1. So then we decided that didn't work. So then we thought, well, mount it on the crankshaft so that it's directly on the engine. But we still had no luck with this, because with these very fine teeth, it only has to have a little bit of a wobble and it runs out of gear. So we've now forgotten that, and Wasp has found us a small gear, which is this one. Bit heavy, but we can lighten that if necessary. But we still want to get it to work. So that bit's going to fit on the engine. That bit's going to fit on there. And the drive sprocket is going to fit on there. So we haven't got to the drive sprocket yet, because we haven't got it to start yet. So anyway, now we've decided we're going to make a valve lifter. And funny enough, I was talking to some bloke who came with a National Autocycle class, Tony. He works on Ducatis. And I showed him what we were doing, and he said, oh, it's really funny, he said, because I'm making a valve lifter to fit on a Ducati. Because the people who own them are having a struggle starting them, because obviously they're getting old like me. So anyway, so that was quite a coincidence. So then what we did, we experimented and we put a 25 valve feeler underneath the exhaust valve, so it lifted the exhaust valve a little bit, and it did turn it over. So now, what we've got in our mind now is to use this starter ring, move the starter motor slightly. We've already mounted the starter motor very strong to the chassis, and we've got various other things. So I think the starter motor will be held good enough. So then once we get it to whiz over, we'll then design and make a valve lifter. But anyway, this is as far as we got. Bigger teeth, new ring. We've clocked that up so that it goes on the flywheel, on the end of the crank beautifully, and it's all been clocked up, because it's got to run accurate. It's no good about having that wobbling about. And obviously when it was on the clutch tray, it was wobbling about. So that's it. So now John's going to put this in the four-jaw, clock it up on the centre of there, and make that hole bigger, and do it so that it's got like a thou interference or something. We'll warm that up, shrink that on there, and weld it on, and then we'll see. So we'll do that, and then we'll make another video of trying to start it. Right, so this is a film with John machining the starter ring accurately. So we put it in the four-jaw and clock it up with the hole in the middle to get it absolutely accurate, because it's no good of it going like that. So we'll see. Everything we've done so far, we've tried to improve it, but we've got nowhere. So you know, this has got to be the final attempt at making the Emeryson start with a starter motor. Now, in India, they don't use a clock gauge, they use a little bit of metal. And they seem to get it absolutely perfect. I can't believe it myself. So this is the bit we've made up for going on the Jap engine. Obviously we didn't cut the gears, but we got a blank, and John's machined it and lightened it out so it's much lighter. And then obviously we've got to have a drive gear for driving the thing along. Well, it's not hardened and it's not the dead right thing, but 9 out of 10 times this is just a prototype. When we do things, we get it done and then we know what to do. So at the moment, that is just an ordinary gear, proper gear, but not hardened. So it probably wouldn't last very long, but then it ain't going to do 100,000 miles. We've also made the valve lifter. So what we're going to do now, we're going to give that a quick bead blast down at Tim's to make it look nice. And then we're going to bolt it on the car, and then we're going to get it going, and hopefully tomorrow morning, before we go to Bewley, Tanya can make a film of us starting it with the valve lifter, with the starter, and perhaps driving off, you never know. So that's the next step. Right, this is the final trial thing. We've made the valve lifter, we've made the starter ring on the end of the crank, we've got the gear on it to drive the clutch. So now we should be able to start it and drive it possibly. So let's see what happens. Here we go. Oh, that ain't no good, is it?
Try that then, yeah?
Yeah. That needs a full vaulting.
Like I done then, I lifted it on full and then banked it off a bit.
Yeah. Wow. But taking the whole thing as a whole, I really like it. You know, it's a good little car. It's obviously going to be a challenge. I look around it and I could be wrong, but I think you could change the handling immensely. It's obviously got too much grip on the rear. When I used to race the Vauxhall Nova, we used to make it so it lifted the inside wheel and we towed the outside wheel out so that when you went round the corner, the outside wheel was trying to take the back out and it transformed the car. So, you know, obviously might not be the same on this, but I think we could do something. And obviously if we got it to handle pretty good, it's never going to be a winner. But what an interesting old car. And the fact I actually met Paul Emery, and my mate Bob Mitchell worked for him for years, and he did a load of good stuff, you know, and he got involved with go-karts and he raced midgets with Hillman imp engines, and, you know, he was a good bloke. He was the sort of person that I admire, because he had to go at everything, and he never had any money. He always had a lack of money, but he was always trying to overcome it by being clever. Well, we all know you can do that, but in the end, you do need some money. And really, that's what I fought against all my life, really. I mean, when I did touring cars in 1974 in a Capri, it was the worst time in history. There was no bloody electricity. I rang one bloke up and said about sponsorship, and he said, look, mate, he said, I've got a candle on my desk, he said, because there's no electricity. And you're talking about going motor racing. He said, I think you're hoping. I think he was right. So 1974, although I had a 3-litre Capri, the works gave me the car, I had a few bits. Unfortunately, I won the first race, having only got the car 26 days before. I beat Tony Lanfranchi, Tom Wilkeshaw in the works car. I didn't get a lot of help after that, because obviously the year before I'd won both championships outright, and I think they thought I was a lot cleverer than I really was. But with no money, it was impossible. So I know how old Paul Emery felt most of his life. So that's why I've got an affinity with this car, and I think it's a good old thing. And if we can make it go better than it should do, then you never know, we could have a lot of fun. I think it's going to be mostly hill climbs though. I don't know about circuit racing, it might be all right, but obviously we'll try it out at somewhere. But it's got loads of little problems. When you look round it, you know, it's obviously suffered over the years with little jobs being done. Finding neutral's a nightmare, so that can't be difficult, to find a place where you put it in and you know it's in neutral. Because when you're sitting there with this thing revving in front of you and you're trying to sort out the gear, it's impossible. So it wants all them little jobs doing, and I think it could be quite a successful car. But I don't go to race meetings with hundreds of people. You know, it don't work in my experience. I mean, when I raced in touring cars, I always had someone to help me. But, you know, as you get older, it's more and more difficult. I want to be able to get in this, turn the ignition off, on, retard it, press the starter and it fire up. And if I can achieve that, then I might do hill climbs in it. But if I can't, I won't do it. Years ago, I nearly bought a Sports 2000, and I rang up the people that made them, and they said, "Oh, we'd love you to buy one." I said, "What's that?" They said, "Well, we sell them to people, and they say you have 1 degree of this and 2 degrees of that and 3/16 of this," he said, "and they never alter it." He said, "We'd like someone to get one and alter it so they can get some feedback." But as it happened again, I didn't have any money, so I didn't buy one. I thought I might be able to do it, but I couldn't do it in the end. But you've got to experiment all the time. If you want to go quicker than the other people, you've got to experiment. When I did the Vauxhall Nova, they all said, "Oh, you've got to have leader suspension." I said, "Well, if I have leader suspension, I'll be like everybody else." So I didn't have leader suspension. I altered the shockers myself. And I won. I won all the money. But the next year, it was Suzuki Swifts were going to win, and no one was giving us any money, and I couldn't afford to do it for nothing. So I packed up again after 10 years. Well, hopefully this is it. We might get it running, and we might actually drive it. You never know. Now you can see what I mean about being a nuisance, can't you? But we'll crack it. But that's a good start, isn't it? At least I managed to drive it round the bleeding field. Can half understeer though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just looked like I wanted to go straight.
Couldn't get the back out. No. I even put a brake on, you know, and it still wouldn't come out. Now, the development starts. All you got to do now is be able to go brum, bum, 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 and roar off. It's got... Take it. It's going to take a bit of driving as it is at the moment. But I think we'll do it.